not a game, it's a rage thing. It's not a game, it's a rage thing. not a game. It's a rich thing. It's not a game. It's a rich thing.
What is good, YouTube? What is good, PlayStation Nation? It is your boy Persona of Gaming with Persona, host of When Persona Speaks, host of When Persona Interviews, and host of What's Up PlayStation Podcast every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. with my boy Jay Bari. Shout out to my bro. That's the other host. We both are hosts. It's not like a host co-host. I'm a host and he's a host. We switch off. So yeah, guys. I definitely appreciate all the early birds that are here right now. I appreciate all you guys, man. And I got another dope interview. What is this? Interview number 7. I'm climbing in these, man. I'm climbing. And a couple weeks ago, I had put a tweet out. And I asked you guys, who would you guys want me to have on? Because, I don't want it to just be guests that I mean, there's a ton of people I'm interested in. And, I want you guys to also, I want you guys to have some input on this because this is a new show idea that I, kind of came up with on the fly, and it kind of just it's something that I wanted to do for a long time. With doing interviews and interview people in the community, and just talk to people, talk to people one on one about gaming, because as great as podcasting is and things like that, I feel like one on one engagements hold just as much, if not sometimes a lot more value, because you really get to see and really understand how people feel, think, and things like that, right? So, Creative Kofi came, that was a name that came up like 2 or 3 or 4 times, right? And we followed each other already. So that was definitely something that was on the radar. But, the people wanted him, and I had to reach out and say, hey, man, could you come through? And he said yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, this week's interview will be with Creative Kofi. Creative Kofi, please introduce yourself to the people and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
What is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for having me on Persona. I love the What's Happening PlayStation podcast. So far, you guys have really delved into being detailed, conveying a lot of information around PlayStation. There's more than just first party. A lot of people know first party really well, but third party partnerships are huge. PlayStation Network's features are huge. So I really appreciate you for that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, so you guys know me as creative_Kofi. Kind of came onto the Twitter scene and to the YouTube game commenting space about 18 months ago. I have to give a shout out to FC Violent because he was the one who kept messaging me before that podcast started, Vitamin G, and said, why aren't you talking about games, right? We used to argue in Facebook forums about Xbox. I used to be a very hardcore PlayStation guy. I'm not going to lie.
You in the right place.
I used to be, and I can tell some stories about how hardcore I used to be on YouTube.
Okay.
But since coming back, I had been delving into exploring how I could bring informational value to gamers who love Japanese games. And that did end up sending me on this wild run to study Japanese. And I'm approaching, I'm at 7 years. And
7 years
now,
studying Japanese?
7 years studying Japanese. And it's one of the best things I've ever decided to do in my life.
Yeah.
Meeting my wife, my kids, all go ahead of that. But personal hobbies, man, studying Japanese changed so much about how I think day to day. So it feels like I need to try to give back to the community because I see there's still this gap where a Japanese game comes out and it's so niche and the wider audience might not have it on their radar. If I can help encourage that, I feel like I can contribute to the community in that way.
Awesome. That's pretty dope. I gotta be honest. That's definitely really good to hear. I want to kind of play around in the Japanese area for quite some time, if you don't mind. So you said that 7 years ago you were interested in this. Where does that interest come from? Like, were you like into anime? Were you into Japanese games, like as a kid and things like that? Like, were you reading manga? Like, where does the interest for the Japanese culture and wanting to understand Japanese and things like that? Where did that come from? How did that become a passion that you wanted to pursue?
So people who are going to come back and listen to this interview are going to laugh at your question because they know the answer. But basically, yeah, back in 2011, so 2 years before I started studying, I started playing a game series by Falcom called Legend of Heroes.
Okay.
And at the time, 9 years ago, there was only one game that had been localized. And in Japan, I think in 2011, there was 4 games already available in Japan. And I didn't think much of it, right? Because I wasn't very impressionable of the series. Just decided to try it. And I loved it. So I think it was November 2011. I said, this is the best thing ever. The cliffhanger ending, which I won't spoil. Oh my gosh, when's the sequel coming out? And the current localizing company was called Xseed. Shout out to Xseed. I love them.
They make some pretty dope games,
Oh my gosh, I love them.
Yeah, they're dope.
And I had this, but I'll be dead honest. I had this love-hate relationship with them because there was this community that was growing just like me who was we were waiting for the sequel to be localized, and we know that the amount of text in this game series is massive. People's eventually they get to the size of The Witcher, not this particular sequel. And Xseed was a pretty small company, especially in 2011, 2012.
Mm,
So over time, on Twitter, they would tweet things, they would localize smaller games, and they'd never say anything.
mm.
After about a year and a half, there was a Japanese announcement for the sixth game in the series. So I was sitting here on the first game, and people in Japan were like, "Oh yeah, I just I'm playing Cold Steel." I'm like, "Cold Steel, what is that?" Like, all the way up to 2013,
Mm.
and I go, I lie to you not. I'm walking home from my job, and I go, I'm just going to study Japanese. Like I'm just fed up with this.
Wow.
This is getting ridiculous, and I went to the app store. I downloaded a hiragana and katakana memorization app, and then a month later, I downloaded the kanji app, and I never stopped.
No Rosetta
Just
Stone.
well, here's the thing. I did Rosetta Stone like way back, like before I knew Japanese was going to be my thing. And
Okay. Okay.
Rosetta Stone, I don't have anything against it. And actually, somebody from another podcast I'm on reached out to me because they're using Rosetta Stone. So I'm trying to build some tools for that person
Okay. Okay.
around what they like. Like, you need to find your way to fluency your own way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. That's not correct.
Yeah.
You need to. The number one reason people fail is they're not having enough fun.
Yeah.
If you tell them, "Oh, you can't watch anime because you can't get fluent that way," I technically agree that anime can't make you fluent, but it can certainly help you immerse on a daily or hourly basis.
I was gonna
And that's
say,
what's so important.
so like when I don't, I agree because like with anime, there's things that like I was saying like when I was a kid and stuff like that and started watching anime and all that stuff, I would just walk around saying, Mozuka, like I don't know what I was saying, like
Yeah.
but I'm saying it because like it stuck with me so much. From watching so much anime growing up, and even like playing a lot of Japanese games, playing a lot of like Street Fighter, and things like that
Yes.
had those Japanese voices, like all those different things. I agree. Like there's a lot of Japanese influence, especially. It's funny because for me as well, I'm so into like anime and Japanese games, JRPGs and things like that as well. That when I it's been a part of my life for a long time, so I get it,
Yes.
and
It's like,
it's definitely something. That's why I say like it's actually really dope that you actually took the time to learn it because it's something that you yourself really love. Like you love these games, you're playing these things, you're seeing all these different things, and you're like, I wanna be a part of this and learn this so that I can further my experience. That's dope, man. That's really dope.
I I appreciate that. And I'm not gonna lie, it was not easy. There was days I was banging my head on walls and I was wondering why I even started this. I also decided to challenge myself by taking a standardized test in the language called the Japanese Language Proficiency Test.
Hmm.
And I think the first two times I took it, I failed.
Oh wow.
And you can only, in America, you can only take the test once a year.
Oh
So
wow.
if you fail, you just sit and you think about it,
you
right?
gotta,
It's like
you
losing
gotta
like it's
sit
like
that
losing a
for a year.
playoff game, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
oh, dude, brutal.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's wow. So okay, so another question. When it comes to learning Japanese, right? Um, at what year? Because you say you've been doing it for 7 years. At what year did it really start to click, where you really were like you were still in that learning phase, but you also was kind of in that intermediate phase where it's like, I'm still learning, but I'm also still able to read and have a conversation with people in this language now.
Oh, great question. Straight up answer, 2.5 years.
Okay.
So I started March 2013. By December 2015, I was able to read Legend of Heroes, and it's hard even at that point
Hmm.
because Legend of Heroes has people in relationships, uh, uh, political conflicts, people using magic and alchemy, and there are robots and mechanical things. So the conversation can range um, quite drastically. So I'm still running into kanji at 2.5 years. That is brutal, but I could sit down and read it. And quick story: I thought I was so cocky when I got the apps to study. After 3 months of trying to memorize characters, I imported a game. I imported, the sequel that I
Mhm.
had been so excited about. Like, oh yeah, this is
This is
I'm so
easy.
good. And I literally took 15 minutes to read one statement.
Oh
One.
wow,
And I was
wow.
like, it hurt. It hurt. My eyes hurt to look at
Oh
Hiragana.
wait, a rude
And
awakening. It was like, oh yeah,
yeah.
I still need to learn this stuff.
And I was like, yo, I'm a joke. I was real down on myself, and I was like, there's just no way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
um, what I did was, my thing was, I wanted to actually enjoy the game, not pretend I understood the Japanese being used. So I
Hmm,
put the
hmm,
game away for those 2 years, and that's when I came back. Was December
hmm.
2015.
Okay.
But because Japanese should be looked at in all four categories: writing, reading, listening, and speaking.
Hmm,
Um, Depending on how you want to lose the language, like for people here who would ever be interested in learning Japanese, you need to realize what you want it for most. If you want to speak fluently to natives in Japan, that's the most difficult piece, in my opinion, because
yeah.
here's the crazy thing. People say like, oh, once I can read a couple Romanji characters, I'll be able to express myself. As you get better, you're going to be more critical of how you want to match a native person's tonal expression,
Hmm, hmm,
their ability to maybe write kanji in the air and express themselves, because so many sounds are similar in
hmm,
Japanese.
hmm.
Um, that's where you're going to go down the time sink. But if you want to just read it, it's easier because you don't have to practice listening as much in the
Hmm.
beginning.
So,
So
what would you say is the hardest to do? Because like looking at Japanese, hearing Japanese, like it's actually interesting that you categorize it like that way: looking, reading, writing, and listening. Because when I watch anime, even if I'm watching it in Japanese, and like reading the subtitles, there's certain things that I hear, and I've heard it so much watching so much anime. I know what it means from when it's translated into the subtitles, where I'm like, oh, okay, I know what that means. And it's like,
absolutely.
oh
So
wow, like I don't know. I'm not gonna say I don't know Japanese. I'm not gonna say like I can have a full blown conversation or anything like that. But it's interesting that you break it up into that category, because I feel like learning, because you break it up into that category, the way you learn it actually is different, because you're learning it in four different categories, because
absolutely, like
hearing and writing it are two different things. You get what I mean? How
in
did
the
you how
writing,
did you so with those four categories, how did that kind of come together for you? Like, which were you strongest at first? Which did you struggle at? Like, how did that come together for you?
reading is far my strength.
Okay.
Far my strength. I can speak decently. I'm critical of myself because I've heard very fluent people on YouTube. I'm sure if people here have ever thought to study, there's a great YouTube channel of a guy named Matt versus Japan. And his technique is something I've very much mimicked. He used to call it AJAT, all Japanese all the time. He changed it now to what is called the mass immersion approach,
Okay.
which I could talk about more. And I'm sure people have heard of Dogen. Both of them are great,
Okay.
and their technique to change your phone to Japanese. Do you use Windows? Do it in Japanese. I don't care if you use Linux. Do it. Buy a video game. Do it in Japanese. I can talk about that more. But
Mm,
for me, what I bought, the first book I bought is called Remember. James Hisig is the author, but it's called Remembering the Kanji. And without knowing the reading of any particular kanji, I memorized the meanings. And that's such a weird concept for English speakers, or like monolingual English speakers, because when we read a word, we automatically know that meaning, we associate it.
mm,
But in Japanese, the reading could be one of many things.
mm,
Often, individual characters have two readings, but it gets way more complicated than that.
mm,
It depends on what era you're talking about. We're talking Mongol invasion, Ghost of Tsushima inspired. It could
mm,
have a
mm.
third reading. If we're talking about something a little bit more modern, it could have up to 4, 5, 6 different readings. But basically, there are a set of kanji characters that are the standard for your average Japanese native. It's
Mhm.
about 3,200.
Okay.
And this book basically gives you the first 1,000 and a story. Like, for example, the character for human looks like, often what they say is, it looks like a person who is leaning against another person. But really, the point is you're supposed to make up a story that helps you remember it for how you think it looks.
Mm.
And eventually, you're supposed to take advantage of a memorization system, SRS,
Mm.
spaced repetition system, that guarantees um, your rate of forgetfulness will outlive your life. That's literally the concept, that you'll see a character I don't know, a couple thousand times and then realize that you memorized it for its meaning.
Mm.
Then so that was the first year from 2013 to 2014. I just did meanings. After that, I started to combine individual kanji characters for vocabulary, because a kanji character by itself might be a word, it might be water, might be person,
Mm-hmm.
but where it gets complicated is when you have, I don't know, a single dash and then the word, I don't know, a cross, which would typically mean a number, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the the process is long to get you into the reading space. But I just wanted trails. I was like, I'm in America. I rarely will run into Japanese people. Why would I want to speak?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not the right way to think about it. You
Yeah.
have to try to, if you like anime, there is a great website that uses Japanese subtitles with the anime instead of the English. Because people think that, like, for example, if you were to watch One Piece
Mm.
with English subtitles, you're going to have the habit of reading the English. You're listening to the Japanese and you'll hear like Mugiwara, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna train yourself better if you see the Japanese Mugiwara.
Writing of it. Oh
Absolutely.
wow. Okay.
And
Okay.
there's one website I use called Animelon that's so powerful that if you mouse over the subtitle, it'll instantly highlight vocabulary and give you the definition on screen, and it'll pause the anime for you.
That's pretty
The
dope, actually.
only Yeah, it's a powerful site. I will definitely give reference to that. It's a free site, and the disadvantage is it's not like the newest anime. Like, if you like Boku no Hero Academia, they have
Oh,
the
listen,
first
that's all
three
fine.
seasons.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm down. I'm down for it. That's actually really dope, because you know, prior to the pandemic and stuff like that, I was actually going to go to Japan this summer. So, you know, that's definitely something good, at least for me personally, wanting to learn more Japanese, so that when I do go there, I ain't a fish out of water at 100% at least. Um,
absolutely.
that's really dope, man. I want to go back to Ghost of Tsushima, because I want to ask this question. So, you know, being, you know, knowing Japanese and knowing English, things like that. How did you play the game?
Oh, sorry, which game?
Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, yes. So I'm still playing it. I am
Okay.
just getting to Act 2 though,
Okay.
so
So,
I'm not all the way.
question: are you playing it in English? Or are you playing it in Japanese?
Oh, I'm playing it in Japanese with Japanese subtitles.
Oh, that's
And I
nice. That's dope.
love when an North American release game has that option. It's
Yeah,
so rare.
that's really dope.
Um, as you probably heard, Jin Sakai's Japanese voice actor is Zoro from One Piece, and I think he sounds great. And so here's the crazy thing about Tsushima: the writing and all of the ancient words are correctly used when they're referenced for things. Like, for example, a village leader is soncho, and that word soncho is what Japanese people today would use.
Hmm.
Those same characters are used in the subtitles in Tsushima, but it's literally the old Chinese writings, things that I wouldn't have studied, because we're talking about 1247, or the late 1200s.
Yeah.
So if I look away from the subtitles and they say, you know, what would be a village leader, I'm like, what is that? And
Hmm.
I have to look at the word and go,
Hmm.
oh shoot, they're like they I guess what I'm trying to say is Sucker Punch took the attention to detail to actually do something like that.
Yeah.
They didn't have to.
Yeah.
And
The authenticity is, it's there. I knew it was there when I was reading that. Was it Famatsu? Yeah, it was Famatsu that gave it a perfect score, and like a lot of Japanese
shh,
people in Japan was like, they really were like giving a lot of love and praise to this game. And back in 2017 at the PSX, when they did their panel, they said that they were in Japan for quite some time, specifically Tsushima Island, speaking with the people, and really, you know, trying to understand that culture, because they really wanted to make sure that this game was authentic and was respectful to the Japanese culture and really did a lot of, and I don't know as much about it as you do, like in terms of how you study and things like that, but from what I saw with how things were, like it looked very authentic to me. And
Yeah,
when the
like
Japanese people gave it the seal of approval, I'm like, all right, so we're all on the same page here. This is good.
yeah, like, and there's so much positive to say. I'll be very honest. I listen to the wide range of things. That they're not all positive, but I'm sure you heard who was one of the creative directors on the Yakuza series, and I'm sure you heard his takeaway was people in Japan should have made a game like this. And there is the stereotype with main character roles in Japanese entertainment that typically an actor has to have a certain look that the Japanese people appreciate. Something that Americans might describe as like a pretty boy would only be a set role for somebody in a video game lead. And what the creator, I forget his name, over at the Yakuza team didn't describe the guy who does the voice acting for Zoro as that. He was, less than the standard that he's expecting. So it's basically Sucker Punch giving actors who have the skill, right? The skill and the voice, a new chance to kind of step into the field of representing his own country, which is awesome. I love that. And if I were to
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, just bouncing between positives and negatives, to be fair, some of the things that are depicted in Tsushima didn't actually exist yet.
Okay.
During that time period, certain things like a shogun like Date Masamune, armor that he wore, you see reflected a lot in Tsushima, but he's not even there, in that actual time period. So I do listen to some very what would you say, critical native Japanese people who they were heard about that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So important question here. Now that you're fully realized Japanese speaking person / English speaking person, what are your because a lot of people in the, I don't want to say a lot, but there's people in the community, especially in the anime community, that look down on people that watch dubbed versus subbed anime. Oh, this question was coming, Kofi. This question was coming. So for you. One, do you even watch anything? Do you watch any type of anime in English? That's one. Two, what are your thoughts on the dub versus sub arguments that happen? Like, where do you stand with that?
I'm becoming more and more of a snob every day.
Oh, okay.
If you listen to dubbed, I'm not gonna have a smile on my face. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But certain animes I grew up with, I still like in English more. I'll give a couple of examples.
Okay.
And this is kind of exposing the type of animes I like. I don't know if I'm going to get judged. I see some people writing a Dragon Ball Z dubbed. I really like.
I hate the sub version. I don't like Goku's voice.
I don't like Goku's voice in Japanese, even though I've spent all this time trying to appreciate the nuance. It doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. Another one, Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yu Yu Hakusho is actually really good in English. The Japanese version is great, but the English is also, it's up there. I would put it up there.
Yeah. Even I hate to say it, even the opening song for Yu Yu Hakusho, I appreciate in English.
Yes.
I went back and listened to the Japanese, but yeah.
That's classic. I think we both can agree here. Inuyasha, you think that's good in English?
It was actually on my mind. Inuyasha in Japanese, I hate it. I hate it in Japanese.
I don't like it. Yeah, I don't like it either. I don't like it. I don't know if you ever seen this one. You ever seen Case Closed?
Oh my gosh, I love Case Closed.
Case Closed is one of my favorite animes of all time. That was really good in English.
You know what's funny? I don't know if I've ever. No. Yeah, because Case Closed, because I started picking it up in Japan like many, like back in 700s, which is way beyond. Yeah. But I'm trying to remember what he sounded like in English.
He sounded like when he was as a kid, he sounded like a higher pitch Goku. This is like a little higher pitch, like a little bit higher pitch. He was a little higher pitch because he got turned into a kid, so he got that kid voice. but he still was using like they were still using whenever he was like using the voice changer to sound like an adult. He sounded like I don't know. I'm trying to think of a character that he sounded like. He sounded very preppy, like very very educated, very he sounded clear. It was good. I like the English voice version
Are
for
you
him.
still watching Case Closed?
Okay, so story time. Back during the Adult Swim tsunami days, I was watching it, and that's how I was watching it at first. They stopped doing the English versions after like 125 episodes or so, and
Okay.
everything was in Japanese. Like it was only in dub, and I don't know. I was so used to the English, I stopped. Like I was just like,
Oh,
because I like the English versions and things like that. So I watched the movie and things like that, and I'm gonna watch the new movie that they're coming out with, Conan. What is it? Conan Detective Case Number One or something like that. But yeah, that I fell off. I've watched a couple of them and they're okay, but I don't know because they're like up to like 900 episodes, and I'm just like,
it's crazy.
yeah, it's like it's too much for me. Same thing with I'm trying to think of another one. So you're what you're saying is you're a sub. You're definitely prefer to sub than in the argument of dub versus sub, you're a snob. That's what you're saying.
I'm a bit of a hypocrite though, because like if you like you said, somebody in the chat said Cowboy Bebop again.
That's a good
Great
one.
example. I'm
Yeah.
gonna watch that in English.
Samurai
Sorry.
Champloo. That's another great one.
That's another good one. That's great in English.
Um, you ever seen Eureka 7?
No, oh, you know what's funny? I've seen like half or like the first 7 episodes because I was paying for them and then I,
Okay.
I stopped.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a really great. It's one of those feel good animes. Well,
That's with the
it's
mechas,
like
right? Or like the dragon? It was like
yeah,
a
no,
dragon mecha or something?
it's with. Think of it as like a Romeo and Juliet Gundam. Think of it like that. That's the best way I
Yeah.
can explain it. And like it's like a Romeo and Juliet Gundam type of thing. Because Renton, he's like this troublemaker boy, but he's like the son of like the best pilot in the world, and his dad dies and his mom dies, and like he goes on the ship with I forgot the name of the captain, and Eureka's like this super special girl that can control Nirvash, and like they're trying to stop the calamity and all this. It's crazy, like it's really good, but it's a lot of like lovey dovey, like I like you, Renton. Oh, I like you too. Like it's that type of stuff. Any animes you watching now?
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I've spent a lot of time catching up on games and then just studying the language alone. So I'm a little bit behind, but I'm watching Blood Orphans. Gundam
Okay.
Blood Orphans. Love it. I think a lot of the characters there have a level of maturity that you don't see in some other popular series nowadays. I just feel like the main character is confident in himself. I love that.
Hmm.
Um, I just finished all of Boku no Hero, so I'm all caught up with that. And I
Okay.
just watched the
Okay.
first movie. Was it Two Heroes? Where I don't want to spoil it, but the end is like they're top fighting on top of that building, and
Yeah, that was like so amazing. Him and All Might just running side by side. That was
yo,
just
the
so great.
animation.
It was just so great just to see him like he's just becoming a fully realized hero. Like I think this show is like on like one of like the top. It's gonna be like one of the greats. I feel like it because the pacing is great, the action is good, the story is great, and a lot of the characters are really solid.
Yo, I'll be dead honest. I don't want to spoil it too much, but the number two strongest hero, Hawks, at
Mm.
the end of season 4, he is one of my. Even though we've only seen him for a short time, I think he's
He's
the definition of a hero to me.
he's up
The
there
fact that
with
his
you.
feathers can like go and pick up people.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. So I ended up buying the mangas. I haven't read through the whole thing, but I bought the very next manga after that, the end
Okay.
of that season 4, that fight.
Okay.
So I'm very excited.
Um,
Uh,
that's what's up, man. That's what's up. Yeah, it's dope, man. Like, so how did Famatsu happen then? Like, was that just did that once you got you understood Japanese and stuff like that, and you can read it and all these different things? Was the Famatsu was just like a no brainer? Like, oh yeah, let's do this. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so I got to be dead honest. I only do Famitsu translations totally voluntarily. It's not any sort of hiring
Okay.
that happens. They don't pay me or anything like that. But my first thought was I just want people to I don't do it enough, but I want people to come to my timeline and see some information that I could give them on something.
Mm-hmm.
And I should do it more often, but it's supposed to be every Wednesday. I could take the top 3 headlining articles and give you a tidbit that might be translated by Silicon Era, who, by the way, I have huge respect for. But I'm going to get it to you first, and I'm giving it to you in a quick tidbit
Yeah.
on the timeline. So that's and the same thing with Dengeki. I know a way to, people have digital download, what do you call it, like suites that you can use on Android. I just download
Mm-hmm.
it really quick. I'll just read it raw, kind of type as I'm reading it in
Just
Japanese.
type out real quick.
Yeah, just type it up real quick and tweet it out. Now, if it's something more controversial, I will. Oh, so here's the thing. I did that long enough, and shout out to this guy because this might seem like a small victory, but Black Kite, who does a lot of like big news Japanese translations, followed me,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I tweeted, I messaged him. I was like, dude, I look up to you. I hope to be somebody who can translate important news like you. And he gave me some great advice. So what's it called? I try to like meet his format style where
Mm-hmm.
you can interact with people who ask you direct questions, because that's going to be the thing. You can't translate everything perfectly, but you could give a general nuanced
Mm-hmm.
explanation. And when people give you a question, reply, show screenshots of what you're translating so that other Japanese natives know where you're coming from.
So
It's a great way to not get
have
caught up.
you thought about like getting into like content creation and because honestly what you do on Twitter, that's dope. Like that's a really dope thing, and really that's a unique thing, right? And there's a lot of people that love anime, Japanese games, all these different things. Have you thought about creating a YouTube channel based around not just dissecting the Famitsu and Dendeki issues and things like that, but just straight all Japanese everything. Have you thought about that?
I would love to. I can't run a channel on my own. I don't. I either need to play games or let other people host podcasts. What I am working on is I have a couple of friends in Japan that want to run a Japanese podcast where all the natives don't really speak English well, and I could participate with them,
That'd
and
be
that would
dope.
really help my day-to-day conversation of Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing that was really cool. So I'll give a quick story. I met a guy on Twitter way back in 2013 who was learning English, but he was living in Japan.
Mm.
Long story short, he hit me up. He was like, "Look, I love to travel. I'm coming to America. Where should I go?" I was like, "Dude, come to DC. I'm in DC. I'm like, come to DC. We're gonna hang out. I don't care what you do." And he really inspired me to do all the other spaces in the language. Like I said, I pigeonholed myself into just reading, but meeting Hiro gave me like I need to be able to listen. I need to be able to do all the conversational stuff.
Yeah.
So he has the podcast that he wants to start up.
Now, would this be a
And
gaming podcast, or what type of podcast would it be?
it would be gaming and entertainment. So we could dabble on an anime game, like like for
That's
example,
very different in the gaming community, bro. Like that'd be dope. Hey, listen, even if I understand, I'll tune in. You feel me? I tune in.
it would
Shoot.
literally blow my mind if I could just do like a literal all Japanese language podcast.
Yeah.
It is my absolute dream.
That'd be dope.
Um,
That'd be dope, man. Definitely. Let me know when that happens, man. I'll definitely tune in for that, for real.
Thank you.
So you're a tech guy, yeah?
I am.
Okay. Programming. What tech? Programming.
So I'll say that it's hard for me to dabble in everything I do, but I specialize in what they call situational awareness.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
anytime I don't have to do development on a daily basis, but I have to review code and rewrite code that is poorly done. Typically in the object-oriented space,
Mm-hmm.
Java, Python, Scala,
Gotcha.
things like this.
HTML5.
Not so much web stuff. Like I do
Okay.
JavaScript, but it's with security in mind.
Okay. It's funny
So
because that's actually and you don't have to get too deep. I get it. But for me personally, right now I'm a sysadmin, but
oh
I'm trying to move. I'm trying to move into cybersecurity.
oh
So
yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to break into computer forensic penetration testing, Red Hat, or
Shoot,
Red Hat
red
things like
teams. Yeah.
yeah. I'm really trying to I'm almost there, but yeah, that's where I want to be in IT, just because that sector, it's so short. It's a huge shortage of talent. And the way I am as a IT person now, I have a very strong attention to detail and stuff like that. So I feel like cybersecurity, the shortage of talent, good money. We ain't gonna lie and say, listen, it's really great money. But I like that stuff. And plus,
We got to talk. I guess you're taking off offline.
yeah.
If certifications, I'm sure that's what you're probably chasing at this
Oh
point.
yeah,
Trying
yeah.
to get
Right
get
now
you in the door.
I've got my I have to renew it, but my Security Plus,
Nice.
and I'm
Okay.
moving into Well, we'll take it offline. We'll take it offline.
Hmm.
We'll take it offline. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's great.
So so I hear a lot of things about coding and stuff like that. So we gonna get to some gaming talk. Is that okay? Can we kind of slide to some gaming talk, Kofi? Is
We
that
can touch
good?
on it. I will throw this out there. I've never developed a game from beginning to end. So
That's fine.
you've heard me on podcasts before. I'll never say I'm a developer, so I know how the
Yeah,
slip
yeah.
space engine should work. You're never gonna hear me
Well, no,
say that.
hey, so let me ask you this question then. When it comes to the next gen consoles, right? PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, when you see what they're doing, right? And you see the games and stuff like that, for you and I want you to kind of explain this to us from two different ways, right? From a tech expert, because you're a tech expert, really, not a gaming tech expert, but you delve around in technology enough to understand how fast it moves, how important things are to all that different stuff. Plus, you're a gamer, so from both sides of the coin, give me your thoughts on next gen. Like, how do you feel going into next gen?
I love it. And I'm going to take a quick quote from one of my favorite PlayStation guys, Colin Moriarty.
Mm.
Uh, Going through a generation as a platform holder is a potential and execution partnership.
Mm.
Without either of those, you're probably going to be unimpressive at the end of
Mm.
the day. And seeing something, it really I want to take a failure of the PlayStation when 3 was announced, and not only was their price outrageous and they had a lack of games, it
Mm.
was hard as hell to develop for.
Yeah,
Not based
yeah.
on me saying tried to make a
It
game
was the
on it.
cell
You can just
architecture.
Yes, the cell
Mm.
architecture. The
Mm.
fact that 360 games um, that were cross-platform just looked better.
Mm.
Obviously, like people point out things, games like Bayonetta was one of the first ones. It was like dead obvious
Mm.
that a developer like Sega was struggling. And Sony doubled down on getting the execution right. And I will always commend them for that, because even though PlayStation 3 only sold some 80 something thousand, they were looking real bad. They were looking real spooky for a while there.
Yeah.
But they went out and they purchased Media Molecule. They went out and they purchased who did they get after Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch
Sucker
Productions,
Punch.
they had not bought until the release of Infamous 2.
Mm.
They had just
Mm.
been around. They had just
Mm.
been making games for them. Um,
You know,
so
it's funny though with PS3. One thing I think we should keep in mind is that PlayStation 3 never faltered when it came to the games. As bad as the official launch of PS3 was, and the pricing and all that stuff, and a lot of people weren't really feeling that stuff. And the cell architecture, developers saying how hard it was to develop for that. PlayStation didn't falter on the games. Can we agree there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It only got better and better throughout the generation. We all know
Yes.
that 2013 ended with some bangers we were not expecting. I'll never forget the first time we saw The Last of Us. I think it was E3 2012,
Mhm.
and Joel had blown off the guy's head. I don't know if you remember. He had grabbed the shotgun and blew off the guy's head when he was laying on the floor. Yo,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was just what is PlayStation doing? Next year is PlayStation, the next PlayStation, right? Why are they making this so
Yeah.
late?
Yeah. Yeah.
But really, it's kind of how PlayStation's operated, right? We've seen things like God of War 1 and 2 come out towards the end of the PlayStation 2's life cycle. So um, it's just the way that they want to maximize. That's why I like the idea of execution is everything. You need to be able to have compelling software that takes advantage of your hardware, or inspires you to use hardware in a way that we've never seen before,
So now, okay, so
whether
now
it's VR.
I have to ask this question then, Kofi. in terms of, because we're speaking real highly of PlayStation, right?
We are.
Let, let's go to the other side of it with Xbox. Would you say it's fair to say that Xbox did not have a great generation this gen? Is that
Absolutely.
fair to say? Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, people are going to know me as the Xbox hater. Um, but I want to give them compliments. I just want to kind of paint what my history's been like.
Okay.
I was disappointed with Xbox um, before this generation started, really about 10 years ago. And I stopped committing to the ecosystem, but I would still buy exclusives I liked. Most recently, I'm going to be playing Wasteland very soon because I'm very excited about that. So when I see people react the way they do in this Twitter community, it reminds me of how I felt back in 2009, 2010, when I felt like the RPGs were going to dry up. But I'm
Yeah,
not as
PS3
angry
was
because
so
my money is
rough.
not being taken every
Yeah,
year on
yeah,
Xbox Live or something like that.
yeah. Speaking of
Um,
JRPGs, yeah, the PS3, man, the JRPGs were dry, bro. It was bad
Yo, we
PS3
were
times.
hurting.
Yeah,
We
it
were
was
playing
bad.
what was that game? That crap game. Cross Edge. You know Cross Edge? That was a terrible
No,
game.
oh
That was
my
the only game
god,
we had.
no. Yo,
Oh
it
my
was bad.
gosh.
It was bad. This gen PlayStation, where it is Japanese games galore. This is definitely PS2 days when it comes to Japanese games,
I
and
completely agree.
JRPGs. Like it's really good. Like one of my favorite JRPGs this gen is Tales of Berseria.
Oh,
Yeah, I love that. I love that game a lot.
I
That
have
and
still not gotten to that game.
Violet is such a good character, man. Like she is just that story is done so well. I really enjoyed that game a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm behind on. It's funny. I just imported one of the Tales games. It's Tales of Innocence R on Vita, but I haven't really gotten into it.
I
But I need to
tried
play
to
Berseria.
Tales of Zestiria I didn't like, and Tales of Vestiria I like. It's pretty cool. Trials of Mana is good. Dragon Quest 11 is another one that's like really, really like I love that game so much. I
Shout
love
out
it.
to Dragon Quest. I got that the new one on Switch that came out last
Yeah.
year.
So you got the orchestra music. Lucky, 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 lucky.
Yeah.
um. Okay, so in terms of this gen and next gen, right? As a gamer, what are some things that you personally want to see change in gaming from this gen, leaving this gen going into next gen?
Ah, um, I'll go on an individual party basis.
Okay.
For for Xbox, they did not have a good gen, in my opinion, but some of their games I did really enjoy. And I think the process, like we were talking about knowing technology and talking about the Xbox ecosystem, they
Mm,
must have a ton of talent. I have one
mm,
particular family member who just got hired by Microsoft, and he is
nice.
talking to me about how he's trying to get into the gaming side. And he says, like, dude, the competition's so tight. Like you have to be smart. You got to know all X, Y, and Z just to get on a team, any team.
Mm,
Name one.
mm,
And I honestly believe they got the smartest people there. I just think the management there doesn't have the vision to say we want to impress the world with some sort of technical showcase or
mm,
some sort of new way that people interact with each other. Kind of like how Xbox Live was so awesome to me, at least back in 2002, 2003,
mm,
when it came out. There are a lot of things that obviously like people have a valid point in saying the quote unquote paywall that Xbox Live has become over time is annoying comparing to PC people. But connecting gamers on a console basis, where you can share gamer score and communicate in party chat, that was something I had never seen
mm,
with such simplicity.
mm.
I will always respect them for forcing PlayStation to do that. Because
Yeah.
PlayStation, we were like the PlayStation with their obscure RAM amount. Oh, we're going to try to do party chat, right? We're going to
Yeah.
try,
Yeah.
and they couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So shout out to them innovating in that way.
Yeah.
I didn't see any groundbreaking tech for this generation or groundbreaking breaking execution of some sort of software showcase. My thought for 343 Industries is they were going to show off, quote unquote, Slipspace, and it was going to be like a demo for the Unreal Engine 5. Why wouldn't it be? Who doesn't have more potential than 343 Industries? They've got the funding, they've got the most popular genre, they've got the most iconic IP in Xbox's history, they've got 10 years making one game, they've
Yeah.
got 10 years making one game. So they basically can compete against Crytek. They compete against anybody who makes a different engine.
Well, then,
Um,
seeing, okay, so, it's interesting that you say that then, because, seeing 343 in its current form and seeing how Halo Infinite was when it was shown, where does that leave you? Like, what does that leave you mentally? Like, when you see that, how do you feel about that? Like, are you a fan of Halo when you saw that? Was that like, did that look next gen to you? Like, what's your thoughts?
I love Combat Evolved.
Okay.
I'm not going to say I have followed the series beyond Halo 3.
Okay. Fair.
I didn't play Halo 4. I didn't play Halo 5. And I hear the Halo 5 multiplayer is good. I try to listen to, the Xbox community for games I don't directly play myself.
Okay.
But I think I honestly think that the original vision for 343 and Halo Infinite was to have support for too many variants of Xbox. Supporting a 2013 system from a design standpoint, I'm sure you've heard some people on Twitter talk about game design and change, was a mistake. You need, here's where I try to put in my programming experience. Whenever you have a new software product and you're deploying it on multiple versions of hardware, because let's say you're working on a bunch of server racks, right? You're going to deploy some VM instances. You're not going to get rid of your old servers, but you may have bought new servers and the old ones don't sell anymore. You're not going to have code that takes advantage of those things individually. You're just not going to do it. Because when a server update comes, you're going to need people who are experienced in how those code changes were made. And it gets complicated.
Yeah.
People don't leave the best notes. You know what I'm saying? When you're looking at some, come back and look at some
100%
code,
true.
you'll be like, this dude got no comments. What does this even do? Let me go read the other 10,000 lines of code so I can figure out why he did this because this has some sort of hyperthreading that the other processor didn't on that server rack. That's some bullcrap. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I don't do game development, but when I see applications, it's all about parity. You've got to just take what's similar between them, and it's probably pretty significant. But the scalability argument for game design, I strongly disagree with it. I love that Ryan McCaffrey tweeted that. What was it? A couple days ago. That was
about the Game Pass stuff.
Well, yeah, about the Game Pass stuff. But he was drinking the Kool-Aid about.
Oh
thinking
yeah,
that
and he was saying how like they need to leave the Xbox One version behind. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
I was very happy with that.
Listen, guys, this is a programmer. This is a guy that's a programmer. Now, he's not a game programmer, but the man knows. He knows about programming. So he's speaking from. This is a guy that can speak from a technical perspective. You feel me? Not the spec ops. And if you want to Kofi, the spec ops are. You on social media. The ones you see on social media that's always talking about 12 versus 10 teraflops and all that other stuff, but don't really understand how this technology works. How it does.
Well, let's talk about the 10 versus 12 teraflops, because it's another reason why I think that a developer as talented, maybe as disjointed, but as talented as 343 should be able to put something out that makes us go, whoa, can PlayStation match that? Isn't that the competition that we want to see? But
Yeah.
it just the execution part of it never occurs. At least it hasn't occurred in the last 7 years. You've probably heard the original stories of Gears of War being made for 360 and them requesting that the 360 be included with additional RAM to meet the vision for Gears. I love that kind of stuff. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
But I just feel like something got lost in this gen, and they're like,
How do you feel about Game Pass?
Oh, it's so. I'll be honest. I want to hate it. But Wasteland 3 is $60.
Okay.
Right? Like, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
I'm gonna go buy Wasteland 3 on Steam for $60. That's just me. I'm not going to commit to the Xbox ecosystem because I think it's reasonable to be skeptical of how their first party is going to perform in the next 10 years.
Yes.
It's reasonable to be skeptical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, they've brought in a lot of teams. I have a lot of love for Obsidian. I think they're way better than Bethesda. I have a ton of love for Ninja Theory. I have a ton of love for Playground Games. I got a ton of love for even Rare.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my expectation for these studios is from release to release, you need to be getting better under the most wealthy, platform holder between the three.
Yes.
And if you're not improving game to game, I'm not going to be giving you, several $100s every 12 months. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
I'd rather, in my own way, I feel like I'm saying, hey, Microsoft, I'll give you this $60. I'll give, and they're cut to that developer for that game.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to commit to any sort of ecosystem type stuff. That's not what I agree with.
Yeah. I mean, that's my thing too. I think it's, when it comes to Game Pass and things like that, I'm someone I like to own. I buy my games. I buy my games. I own my games. I've got like over 700 games on my PlayStation 4. I just I feel like I'm not saying Game Pass needs to go away. Okay, well I am saying Game Pass needs to go away completely. But if we're gonna bargain, right, and meet in the middle, I just don't like the fact that Xbox is pushing Game Pass so far in front of everything that the content, things like this are falling through the cracks, and it feels like they're not paying attention to that stuff and really trying to fix it. It's hard for you to sell me Game Pass and say, Xbox games are day and date in this service when you look at the games and it's like, why would I even pay $10 a month for this? You get what I'm saying? It sounds crazy, but that's how I feel. That's how I look at it.
Looks like a easy reason to make excuses when something doesn't go well.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And maybe that's not the intent. It's just what reality has portrayed to us.
It comes off that way though, because it's like, oh, it's going to be in Game Pass and it only costs $10, and we already got their money, so why are we putting so much work into this anyway? You get what I'm saying? Shout out to Wooflow. Wooflow had a question. He said, Kofi, if you could get any game remade by any studio, what would it be?
I would love to have Legend of Legaia remade by
that man.
Who do I trust?
Old school.
I automatically I want some PS1 JRPGs to come back. It would either be Legaia, Grandia 1, or Legend of Dragoon. Oh, no. Legend of Dragoon by Blue Point. That's what I want.
That's what I was hoping that Blue Point was going to make. No lie. I was hoping that's what it would have been. I mean, even though I never played Demon's Souls and I'm not really into the Souls games, I'm okay with Demon's Souls and I'll pick it up. But I would have rather Blue Point did a Legend of Dragoon remake. Come on. I'd have left work. If I heard that somewhere, I mean, guys, today is done. I just put in my I'm
PTO.
done, yo. I'm out of here, yo. Like we got one of the best games out. I'm good. I agree. So then, I hate sometimes, when I have my guest on and I ask them about Xbox and PlayStation, a lot of them are very critical of Xbox over PlayStation, and sometimes some of my viewers they'll put in the comments, "Oh, this seems very biased." I'm like, I'm not biased. I'm just asking questions, and I think it's because a lot of people in this community can't accept the fact that Xbox needs to do better. And I think when they see or hear people say, "Oh, these negative things," or being very critical, they feel like that we're attacking it. And I'm like, no, these are legit concerns that need to be heard. Would you agree?
Yes, like I speak with Xbox fans a lot because I'm already biased. And I'll be honest, my best friend, he is a huge Xbox guy. And his come off is, I love games that are being published under Xbox right now. Like he'll love something like what's it called? Empires, Age of Empires, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not the biggest game to me. Or he'll love Flight Simulator. Those are games he genuinely is excited for.
Which, Flight Simulator look boring as hell, but that's just my opinion.
That's another weakness for me because I'm into Polyphony Digital is one of my favorite PlayStation first party. So am I gonna love Sim Racer and then turn around and hate Flight Simulator? I can't.
Yeah.
Right? That's hypocritical, right?
Yeah. Actually, no, it's not. It's not. Because
it's not?
No, because playing GT and playing something like that is very different from, flying in the air for literally two real world human hours. I don't know. I feel like those two things aren't the same, right? because there's people that love to drive that hate flying. Does that mean
True.
that they hate traveling? No, they just don't like flying. I think that same thing. I think that same thing applies here. If you're a fan of polyphony and GT and all that stuff, that doesn't mean that because you love GT that means you gotta love Flight Simulator. I love GT as well. Flight Simulator's garbage. Like listen, I'm just gonna keep it real. Flight Simulator looks boring as hell. I would not want to play that. That's not something I would spend money on. And that's
You're so right. Like I see in the chat, Pitch Black said GT is a race. You're so right because when you pull off that tight first place finish, exactly. I scream.
Exactly.
My wife's like, "What the hell?"
And GT is very competitive. You ain't getting competitive flying 35,000 feet in the air in an airplane. Talk about, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be in our destination in 20 minutes. Like, no one, come on, man. No one cares about that. All right, so, so then let's get to PlayStation. Then PlayStation, and I'll say this. For me personally, PlayStation, at the beginning of the gen, they were very quiet, and we were getting a lot of bad news. And I was pissed off. Right, I was very pissed off, and then the June event happened. They started providing more information and things like that, but I feel like they still weren't doing enough. Right, for you personally, looking at how PlayStation has been moving this year with the next gen rollout, are you satisfied? Are you not satisfied? Is PlayStation 5 a day one buy for you? What's up?
PlayStation 5 is definitely a day one for me.
Okay.
The communication aspect wasn't
it wasn't
I'm gonna
great.
Sound like such a fanboy. Like in the beginning,
before you continue, it's okay. This is a safe place. You feel me? Everybody here, I prefer PlayStation. Majority of people in my chat prefer PlayStation. We all prefer PlayStation here, and it's okay. It's okay. Speak from the heart, as my boy Barry would say. But go ahead.
No, but I'm glad you worded that because it reminded me of what the narrative has been. Both consoles compete with the narrative that's negative for them. And when last December during the VGAs, we saw the Xbox Series X, yes, and we heard the announcement of the 12 teraflops, and then we saw, what we thought we were going to see sooner, Hellblade 2. I was like, all right, this race is on. And in that type of announcement, we go many months without seeing a PlayStation 5. Mm-hmm. And then how does the community react? Right? It's, oh, well, I guess PlayStation's the one that was behind because we had heard rumors from Jason Schreier. So in that first 6 months, January to June,
it was rough.
Yeah, seeing that all the time.
We did get the road to PS5.
Where's PlayStation? Oh, they're overheating. Oh, they're thinking about Tsushima, and they're too worried about this game. And,
yeah. I ain't gonna lie. I was one of those people that I as much as I care about Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, I'm like, I also want my next gen news. I can be excited for these games and still get my next gen news. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. Especially because you start removing the Xbox announcing itself and comparing to 2013. In February, we knew something, right? And in June, we had prices. And so it's like doubling down on PlayStation being like, well, even though Xbox has now changed the narrative and made us look really bad or somewhat behind in the social narrative, we're not gonna change our plans. That's how it felt.
Yeah, and it's funny. A part of me can respect that, but then and that's like the business side of me can respect that. But then there's the gamer selfish side of me that's like, I want my PlayStation 5 news and I want it now. I mean, I agree though. Like I think in the first 5 or 6 months, Xbox was looking to be the stronger one when it came to how they were rolling out their next gen news and next gen information. Like I'll admit that. But where they dropped the ball for me personally was the May event, where they hyped up everybody and expectations were high, and what they shown it fell flat.
You're talking about the PlayStation May event?
No, the Xbox May event. Remember the May event where they showed Scarlet Nexus and
oh, okay, the third party one.
Yeah, the third party.
Because I know they had a July event. So
the May third party inside Xbox third party showcase or whatever.
Yes,
that's where they dropped the ball, and that's where things started to dip. because when the road to PlayStation happened in that same month, or it might have been in April, but when the road to PlayStation happened, and Mark Cerny was talking about,
Right.
how this PlayStation is going to be, again, I'm not a game developer, I'm not an engineer per se, but I understand enough about how technology moves and works to look at this and be like, this is a very well thought out machine with the smart shift and the IO, the cache scrubbers, the 5.5 gigahertz memory, read speeds, like stuff like, I'm like, yo, this stuff is crazy.
Yeah,
Like
I was
when you saw that, like what were you thinking as a a tech? Like what were your thoughts?
even as a tech guy, I had to listen twice.
Oh, I
Let's say
listened
that
like three,
first,
four
right?
times, man, because I was
Yeah. Because I'm like, he is so obviously like he has a great way of conveying the information, but he's so eloquent with it, and he'll just go, all right, moving on, and we're gonna go talk about 3D audio.
Mm,
So I had to really break that down, and talking with a couple friends of mine, yeah, very impressed, very impressed. I think the part I wanted to know more about, and I was the only hang up for me was his statements on the backwards compatibility, and
mm,
somehow it felt more complicated after that. It's like,
mm-hmm,
so he said the first 100 games will be available, but we really think it's because he said the logic of PlayStation 4 is part of this processor. It's really going to be the greater library, like some 4,000 games. But he didn't say that.
mm-hmm,
So now
mm.
the narrative is, oh, they're hiding behind it, and it became more than it should be.
Yeah, yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, really blown away by everything I was hearing. I think the 3D audio sounds great. Uh, the bus that is partnered with this SSD sounds awesome. Trying to think just other takeaways that my first reaction were for. We hadn't seen the controller yet, but I just think somebody to stand there and describe a system that well for
An hour.
was it 15 minutes? Yeah,
Yeah, and it's funny because
certainly.
I was interested from like start to finish. Like, there was a lot of people that was like, "Oh, this is Mark Cerny's boring. This is boring. I don't read this." I'm like, I loved it. Like, this was such, it because it wasn't just for me. It was also educational. You get what I mean? Like,
Yes.
I love tech, and I love learning about new technology and things like that. So watching him talk about these things in great detail like that, the tech side of me was just like, yo, this is great. Like, I love this. You know?
And yeah, like another thing I love about PlayStation, and I'm sure many other developers do this, but often their dev teams do a post mortem, and they'll talk about like what their engines are like. One of my
Mm,
favorites is Media Molecules, and this is real. The name of their engine is Bubble Bath, and
that's
the
great.
I'm forgetting the lead developer, but he talked about how many times Dreams failed in creating an engine that was meeting the vision of what Dreams is today.
Mm-hmm,
But it's 2 hours. It's him showing slides. It's him
mm-hmm,
showing a bunch of bubbles and stuff like that. But
mm-hmm.
it blew my mind
Yeah, yeah.
because of because that at that point in postmortem, he had been describing what the engine had become because it basically he didn't know how to represent polygons in a way that was not stressful on a GPU.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Obviously, they found a pretty competitive way to do that.
Yeah.
But that's a great breakdown. Another great breakdown is by Sucker Punch in displaying their. They don't have a name for their engine. At least I've never seen one. But their breakdown for what Second Son was like, and comparing how they were able to more easily render things like particle effects and
Mm-hmm.
explosions in Second Son, comparing to Infamous 2.
Yeah.
And they had what was it, Rondo? What was the blood? It was like a blood expansion on the PS3
Oh,
version of
this is my
something
Bloodborne
blood.
expansion. Is it-
Not no, it was on PS3. Infamous 2 had like some sort of like
Oh, you're talking
Halloween.
about the Old Bloods, I think it was, or something
Yeah,
like
it was
that.
some
I remember
blood.
it's like some Halloween type of expansion. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I know what you're
and
talking about. The
yeah,
Old Bloods, I think it was something like that. Or
hmm
more some. I know what you're talking about because he had like this red lightnings type stuff on the cover. I
yes,
remember. I remember.
and
Um.
yeah.
Oh no, go
Well,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, they have a bunch of PowerPoint slides from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It's
love
it's
that stuff. I love that stuff because they're showing memory allocation, how resources can be taxing in certain spaces. Here was an interesting point: how in some ways the cell processor was more powerful than the PlayStation 4, and they had to really kind of tinker around that, specifically with things like sound. So,
hmm hmm
um, very interesting stuff to me, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Um. So what games are you like eyeing going into next gen? Like, what's really been standing out to you so far?
I don't know if my guy Omar is still in the chat. I'm sorry, I think he had shot me out. Gran Turismo 7. Look, I haven't gotten a numbered Gran Turismo since 2013. It's
Yeah,
time. All right. I know people. I was on some podcast and they were like, Horizon 2 will come out before GT7 or after. I was like, look, I will buy Horizon day one, but I need my
yeah,
GT7 if
yeah,
I can
yeah.
get it sooner, please.
Oh, you
It
hardcore?
was,
You hardcore with it? You hardcore? You got like the
yeah.
racing wheel and all that? You got the whole setup?
So I had the racing wheel back on the PS3. I did not get an upgrade for sport.
Okay,
So, I went
okay,
damaged the wheel, stuff like this. So I don't really use a wheel anymore.
okay.
I enjoy sport with a controller, but yeah, I'm ready to sit down, have the wheel, and play an actual campaign. Even though sport has a ton of great free updates, and you can basically do a ton of offline stuff now. I mean, you have to be connected, but you don't have to be playing with other people. So
Yeah.
I give a shout out to sport for the free stuff. But yeah,
Um.
it's been too long.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely been a minute, and I would even argue that uh, GT. What is this? What was that? GT6 that came out on PS3. I
Yes,
feel like that was slated for next gen. I feel like they should have saved that for next gen.
it felt
Because
weird.
then we got two GTs in the PS5 because we got GT5 and 6, didn't we?
And here's the crazy thing, because Polyphony, I hold them to a high standard. Every PlayStation had gotten two Gran Turismos,
Mm-hmm.
every one,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden we got no numbered Gran Turismos on four. That's my little knock on PlayStation for this gen, to not get a numbered one out. Um, Definitely sucks. But yeah, Gran Turismo 5, one of my favorites, because it was the one that really embraced the online community.
Mm-hmm.
This might sound really weird, but that opening theme song, Soul on Display for
Mm-hmm.
Gran Turismo 5, is one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's been missed.
yeah.
Really, really
Um,
missed, man.
just an important question, and I don't know how deep you are in like I don't the console war social media space. I'm sure you've probably seen tidbits of it, and things like that. But I like to ask my guests this question, and if you don't know or you don't want to answer this, it's perfectly cool. In terms of the gaming community, right, and how it is in its present form, um, what do you think, in your opinion, needs to change with the gaming community?
Um, I'll
Oh yeah,
start with what
that's a big boy question.
yeah. I'll start with what I like, and
Okay.
it might be a little bit controversial. Well, and then I'll give a little bit of background. I used to be super hardcore PlayStation. I used to argue in YouTube comments about how the PlayStation Move was better than Kinect, like
Okay.
nasty stuff.
Oh yeah, you
You know, you
hardcore with it.
Kinect, your little crazy. What was that AI person that Peter Molyneux had? Talk, your thing is garbage. Wait till
Cortana.
some sports come out. I used to be
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
ridiculous, right?
Okay.
I got that out of my system back in 2011. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but here's the thing: I still enjoy the the memes. I'll be dead honest. Craig, fantastic. Or things against PlayStation. I remember I saw one. It was like a clip from Fast and the Furious 8, Fate of the Furious, and Vin Diesel was driving like a 12 teraflop car. Everybody else had, it was the scene where they're
I
trying to
think I
capture
see
Dom.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I can enjoy both sides getting trashed. Or like it was like
Yeah.
an engine revving up and it was a PlayStation overheating
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it explodes or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, I appreciate that stuff, and I know some people don't. But like people, I'm gonna go ahead and name drop people like Tim Dog and J Dub going back and forth. I'm all for it. I think
That's comedy,
and
man.
they appreciate each other for that too.
That's
Or
comedy,
Kid
man.
Smooth, my guy Salty. Um, that's really cool. I think it gets tough when people do take it personally and then they try to use Twitter to have an argument. And
Mm.
I wish there was a better long, like I really like when people can be at least somewhat cordial and debate long in on a podcast where
Yeah.
you can actually get your whole thought out. Having what's it called? Having the 140 character limit. People never get what they're trying to convey across. I often ask another question when
Yeah.
I'm skeptical of something what somebody says.
Yeah.
Be like,
Yeah.
oh, like all PlayStation first party is just walking simulators, and I'll be like, do you mean things excluding Dreams, or I'll immediately
Yeah.
ask a question.
Yeah.
Um, but it's, I don't know. I just feel like when we want to get to the details of why we disagree, the platform of Twitter feels weak to me. Um,
That's deep, actually. Wow. So you would actually want to see the debates move from Twitter to YouTube, like in like a video, like in a podcast format. You would watch some stuff like that.
I would actually like that a lot. Oh,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
what's up.
what we're trying to do over at VGP. As you know, at VGP, we try to have like a representative from each of the major four gaming platforms, and it kind of keeps us all in check.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah, yeah.
Omar's still in the chat, but Omar might come with high energy, and then my guy, not just FC, but like my guy Pharaoh might come back, and then you kind of get told right there with the counter argument, and
Yeah,
you don't get to isolate yourself, right? You
yeah,
could always
yeah.
go back to your community and, oh yeah, we trashing on them, and then you don't get to hear like what everybody else is doing.
So do you think do you think like the whole, because there's a lot of people that I'm sure you see it too, where you'll see like people you'll see quote unquote neutral gamers make tweets like, oh, the console war is childish, the console war needs to go away, all this other stuff. In terms of the console war itself, like how do you want to see that stuff go away? I know I know you say you enjoy the debates and stuff like that, but in terms of like the console war, also Omar's here. He's here. He's saying what's up to
My
you.
man.
Yeah. In terms of like the console war, what's your view on that?
There's a lot of
Is it immature to you? Do you think it's immature? And be
yeah,
honest, listen, this is a safe place. So if you do feel that way, it's okay for you to say you do, and no one here is going to attack you. We're all adults. This. I want you to be able to speak freely, and I don't want you to feel like you have to hold your tongue. So please let us know. Do you think the console was immature?
for about half, I would say about half, like, I don't know. I just feel like you should be able to take a joke.
Yes,
But at the
100%.
same time, people, when people are taking it personally. At least I feel like.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see some quote retweets and you're like, yeah, all right, come on.
Yeah.
I've heard nastier things on Xbox Live, back when I was 13 years old, or
I was gonna say I've heard some. I've seen and heard some pretty crazy stuff playing COD back in the day. Being called the N word.
Yes.
Being mistaken for being, people calling me a Mexican, even though I'm black. It's like, what's going on here, guys? So the console wars, that's chump change.
Yeah, but the number one criticism I would have is people, I don't know, just doubling down on hating to the maximum amount. Like, for this gen, to me, because Xbox basically sold half the amount of consoles that they did last time and now have this Game Pass feature, I feel like they kind of already took an L, right? Your community got cut in half.
Yeah.
So I feel like me speaking with my wallet and not buying an Xbox One, I feel like I'm part of that impact. Me and, obviously millions of other people.
Yeah.
What I think people who don't like the Xbox ecosystem is doing now is weeding out. Like, look, there's still 40 million people out there. We need to get them on PlayStation so that Xbox doesn't do something stupid and influence PlayStation to do less.
Yes.
They don't want PlayStation getting lazy. And I hear you, PlayStation community. It's something that concerns me as well.
Yeah. I think for me, I've retired. I don't want to say I've completely retired from debating, but like for you, back in like 2013, from like 2013 to like 2017, 18. Oh man, I was like super like I'm debating everything. But now, you know what it is, because there's a lot of posers. There's a lot of people that's not really gaming.
Yes.
My problem with the console war is not necessarily with the debates or even with the back and forth, because that stuff is funny. And it is fun, like, especially when you at work, gives you something to do, like, it's fun.
Yes.
But it's the people that don't play games trying to speak on gaming. It's like, you're not playing these games, like, and I'm pretty sure you've seen this back in the day where you saw a lot of people, especially Xbox guys, bashing and saying how Japanese games are trash and how Japanese games aren't fun, and I need English and all this stuff. And I'm like, yo, you're not even playing these games. Like, some of the greatest games I played in my entire life are Japanese games. Final Fantasy VII introduced me to the Final Fantasy series, one of the greatest games ever. Pokemon Yellow version, Zelda, like all these different things that are out there. Suikoden, like it's so many games that I've played, in my life that are Japanese and introduced me to gaming. You get what I'm saying? Mario ain't made by Americans. let's be real here. Mario's not made by Americans. So that's the part of the console war that I personally don't like. Is the fake gamers, the wannabe gamers, the posers. That's my problem with it personally.
You're so right. I don't like. I strongly, I would say, I hate when the biggest influencers have blind spots to certain genres, just like you're describing. And like my whole goal is, part of why I was inspired to study Japanese is to try to give a voice to those lesser known genres, right? People always like Tyler. Kofi's always talking about Trails. What's going on with this small series? And I got to bring it up to the forefront.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, but there are people in the Xbox community that I need to give credit to that do uplift those things. Got to give a shout out to FC Violent. Got to give a shout out to Rand Althor.
Yeah.
Got to give a shout out to Bloody Knuckles. Bloody Knuckles is like the Xbox JRPG guy. I don't know why.
It's some good dudes over there. It's a couple good dudes over there, man. There's some good over dudes. All right, last question, because it's getting late. I don't want to keep you around too long. I asked this question to all my guests, and last week I had Neo GameSpark on, and when I asked him this question, he said his answer was playing the same shit since the 80s, right? So the question I'm gonna ask you is, when you hear the phrase "the future of gaming," what comes to mind for you?
Dang, I feel like Neo Spark got me trumped on this. I don't know.
I'm not gonna lie. His response was probably the greatest response on these interviews so far. So yeah, it's gonna be hard to top that, I think, for a while.
I don't have something like dramatic or thoughtful that I could think that trumps that, because it really do be like VR. Is like the biggest thing that we've done in terms of like market appeal. But dang, man, I don't know, just constantly having new experiences. That's all I'm looking for. That's
good. That's good, man. That's a good one. No, I like it. That's dope. The future of gaming means constantly having new experiences. That is true. It's 100% true. Yeah, man. This was great. This is one of, I think, don't tell nobody else. This is one of my favorite interviews so far, though. I ain't gonna lie. This was one of my favorites. Really dope. Especially, learning about the understanding your process of how you learn Japanese, knowing why you got into learning Japanese and things like that. One more question, too. They wanted to know if you're into gunplay. Gunpla.
Yeah. I haven't done a lot of Gunpla. I've got a Tall Geese 3.
Okay.
I've got
that thing's gotta be like 4 feet. How tall is that thing? That thing's gotta be like 2 feet tall.
Both are 2 feet.
Yeah, okay.
What is the other one? I've got one that I've never put together.
How long does it normally take you to put them together?
That's why I never did the third one. Because I'm a perfectionist and because I don't want to mess up the coloring, it took me, I think, 30 days for both of those.
I want to do Gunpla, but my apartment, I got too many statues as it is, and something 2 feet tall like that, I wouldn't know where to put it. That would have to wait until I move into my condo or something like that. That's when I would do something like that. But I've been fascinated by Gunpla for quite some time, though. They really look fun to do. Knowing me, though, I'd fuck up the painting part of it.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like, what if you mess up halfway? Is that a lost cause?
I'm gonna be pissed. I'm definitely gonna be pissed if I mess up like the painting on it. I'm gonna be so tight. I'm gonna be really mad. I would for sure.
I have to get back to. I I know I got a Tall Geese because Tall Geese 3 and Death Scythe Hell are my two favorites, but I
Okay.
got a third one. It might have been Exia from Gundam 00, but man, I should know that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
So yeah, guys, he's into Gunpla. He's got 2 already. He's got a third one that I'm sure he's going to do at some point and post up the pictures on Twitter. So definitely be on the
yeah,
lookout
I
for
need
that.
to.
Speaking of Twitter, you can follow Creative Kofi on Twitter. The link to his Twitter is most definitely in the description. Follow Kofi, man. Follow Creative Kofi. Because you know who Press Start Kofi is, right? You know the other
Yes,
Kofi.
yeah, we've
like
actually tweeted each other a couple times.
yeah, I'm saying you and Kofi, you guys got the same name. So when I'm like follow Kofi, like oh yeah, I already follow Press Start Kofi. No. This is Creative Kofi. Follow Creative Kofi. You know.
So I was on Weapon Wheel podcast, and some guy was like, "Oh my gosh, Kofi came on Weapon Wheel," and then
Like,
they, it was
hold
me,
on,
like,
not that Kofi, not that
all right,
Kofi.
I was saying because they don't agree.
Not that Kofi. The other guy. It's funny because I had Kofi on 2 weeks ago. So shout out to Kofi.
Oh right.
Yeah. So like they're like, wait, you have a Kofi again? No, not that Kofi. A different Kofi, a different one. So yeah, follow Creative Kofi on Twitter. The link to his Twitter is in the description. Definitely follow him, man. He like I said, he's definitely putting the Trials of Cold Steel stuff up. Because I'm scrolling through and I say, wait, oh shit, what's this? I'm like, oh,
Can
okay.
I say one last thing about Cold Steel really quick?
Yeah, of course.
So I've never done translation work with other people, collaborative work, but there's a fan translation team that is doing the translation for the newest Trails game that just came out yesterday, Hajimari no Kiseki, and they're going to have spreadsheets available for hardcore people who want to play the import now or within a couple months. So I reached out to him, and he would like my help in getting these translations done. We're going to go line by line and have it out. So I'm super excited because Trails literally got me into the language, and now I can finally at least try to give back to people who want to do this.
Listen,
But again, the game will be out in English in like 18 months.
This might turn into a nice little side hustle. Got nice little revenue coming in. That'd be dope, man. I support it. I support it 100%.
Absolutely.
Guys, like I said, follow Creative Kofi. The link to his Twitter is in the description. Also, What's Up PlayStation podcast this Saturday morning at 11 a.m. The links to that are in the description as well. Also, if you want to follow me on Twitter at Persona Speaks. Join the Discord. Link to the Discord is in the description. And I definitely appreciate all you guys for being here. This is, like I said, this is definitely one of my favorites. One of my favorite interviews so far. It's definitely up there in the top 3. And I definitely appreciate all the support, guys. Really fun, really entertaining, and Creative Kofi is a really cool guy. One last thing, for anybody that might be wanting to learn Japanese, what's some quick advice you have for them?
You need to be having fun. If you can somehow incorporate either you love anime or you love video games, make that your catalyst for maintaining with the language. There's a ton of great tools out there. I'm just going to throw out something really quick. Japanese Word Dungeon. It makes you memorize the characters, but you're a knight that's going and slashing like goblins and zombies, and you just have to guess it right. If you're not having fun, you're going to fail. I'm going to be dead honest with you.
That's dope, man. So if anybody's trying to learn Japanese, or really, you can really apply that to any language you're trying to learn. Definitely make sure you're having fun, right? And with that being said, guys, we're going to get up out of here, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hit the like button, comment, subscribe, share the stream out with your friends. And I will see you guys next time. You guys be safe